What is up, wrestling fans? Welcome to episode number 656 of the Smark Moment Smack Talk podcast, hot tags of the week. We're going to break down everything we feel like talking about that happened in the world of pro wrestling the past few days, rumors, news, gossip, TV recap, so on and so forth. I am your host as always, Tony Mango, joined as always by Callum Wiggins.
Hello.
And Robert E. Felice.
Hi.
Hello, everybody. Howdy. Howdy apparently means some other things this week, according to a tweet out there from Wyatt6, but I don't mean it in that way. I just mean it as hola. So, of course, not only are we going to run down what we have to talk about here, but we always want to know what you have to say. So drop your thoughts in the comment section below, on YouTube in particular. And while you're over there, make sure that you are subscribed to this channel. Also hit that like button on this, helps out quite a bit, especially to offset those random people that dislike the video, because when you have some people that think that, you know, when you click on like a Money in the Bank thing and it's labeled a podcast or whatever, they get all annoyed. So all that is like a great way to offset those jerks. You don't want to be a jerk. You want to be a positive person influencing the continuation of Smark Moment. And the best way that you can do that is to help support us on the monetary side of things. Click on that thanks button. Click on the subscribe buttons thing that's right next to it for that. Subscribe to the YouTube channel membership by clicking join. And that gives you access to the same stuff as the Patreon. If you go to patreon.com/smarkoutmoment, you'll see the exact same tiers over there. Even $1 a month goes a great way in helping keep the lights on. $5 a month and up, even better. Of course, $10 gives you the Darkcast. Most recently, we had a reaction to the Wyatt6. And, you got to pick a poison tier as well if you want to directly sponsor something to happen on here. You know, if you want to pick up some kind of merchandise, Redbubble and TeePublic is where you can find that stuff. Smark Out Moment, Fanboys Anonymous, and A Mango Teas all funnel back to the same thing, help water the roots of a mango tree and keep us from going under. And that's not what trees do, but, well, they do, technically, roots, but it's a good thing for that. Analogies aside, especially when I'm botching them left and right, keep in mind the Discord is another place where you can chat it up and talk about pro wrestling and anything else you feel like talking about on those different channels there. We will start getting into our hot tags right now with a congratulations to Rhea Ripley and Buddy Matthews. They got their wedding over the past week. They are now married. Lots of people very upset about that because, whether you're Kathy Kelly or another follower of Rhea Ripley or Buddy Matthews, seen some people that are upset about that. Congrats to the happy couple. That's awesome. Always good to have some good news on that front. Especially because we have some other hot tags that are not on that side. But I know that a couple people were sharing around pictures of Rhea Ripley and her dress and all because she had like a very, gothy kind of thing going on. I sent that to my wife, who immediately went, "Oh, wow, she's so pretty."
Yes, she is pretty, and good for them. It sucks that wrestlers only seem to do these wonderful things when they're injured, but I'm glad that they were able to get this done, and I wish them all the years of happiness.
Yeah, of course, congratulations to the pair of them. As I think it's obviously good timing that Rhea Ripley is currently sidelined with an injury and Buddy Matthews was killed on screen.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a good opportunity for them to do it. And yeah, I kind of dig the all black aesthetic they had going for them, and they kind of matches what they're like on TV as well. So
yeah, and things don't have to be traditional. Look at my wedding. You do the things that make you happy. You tailor your wedding to yourselves, and that's very cool that they did that. So congrats to them. Unfortunately, we do have the total opposite side of things with that. A very happy announcement with Rhea Ripley and Buddy Matthews. Very sad announcement when it comes to the bloodline. Sika Anoa'i passed away past Monday that it had happened, I believe. And
I believe it was Tuesday.
Roman Reigns' father, of course, legendary pro wrestler, part of the Wild Samoans with Afa. I believe he was the oldest member of the Anoa'i family that had been living at that point, which may mean that Afa might be, maybe some other people. Of course, the bloodline families, like the whole family's very complicated with the family tree and all. But nevertheless, whatever that was the case, Sika is definitely somebody who had an outpouring of support from different people talking about their favorite memories. Certain people talking about how they were inspired by Sika to even get into pro wrestling to begin with, or that he was one of the first people that they had met. Positives all on that front for a negative situation. That's usually what happens. But I can't really speak too much to Sika as a fan from the Wild Samoans or beyond. I was, of course, like that new generation and attitude era type of a kid. So to me, I was much more familiar with the Head Shrinkers, which were Wild Samoans 2.0. But without the Wild Samoans, there is no Head Shrinkers. Without the Wild Samoans, there's not a lot of different people in this business. So even if I can't tell you like a favorite match of mine, you go back and it's inarguable how influential they were as a tag team. Definitely a very, very high up there legendary team on probably a lot of people's Mount Rushmore list. I don't believe that they ended up making it on our Mount Rushmore for tag teams, but they might have even. They were at least definitely in the discussion.
I don't know if we did the Mount Rushmore of the Bloodline. I believe we put them on that because you just don't have the rest of it without them. And they did so much for the WWE and the industry as a whole. And they've specifically said they're going to do a 10-bell salute tonight on SmackDown, which I think is really touching because it's not only the Bloodline show, but SmackDown's in the Garden where they had a lot of their best matches.
So I double checked it. We actually put them in two different tiers for the Mount Rushmore of the Bloodline. We did them for the tag teams, and we did them for the B tier of the Ultimate Mount Rushmore.
Nice.
Any particular standout things from Sika that you can recall, or moments, or anything like that, Callum?
Sadly, no. I don't really go back and watch a lot of like pre-90s wrestling because it just doesn't mesh with my liking for the style, especially like the old WWE style of things in the 80s. So, but yeah, I'd say there's no doubting their influence. But yeah, I don't really have much to add from them as from a pro wrestling like match perspective.
It is a different era, and it's the type of thing that if you are tapped into that more, you can speak more to it. And people like us that are, even though I feel old as all hell, especially after my birthday, it's still on the younger side of that. But a generation above me, that was their, you couldn't get any better than the Wild Samoans. It was them, the Road Warriors, Freebirds, just like a few tag teams that reached like legendary status. And Sika, of course, is, Roman Reigns' father. So there's many, many more positives on that front when you get into his influence for Roman and being a big part of just continuing the bloodline and the Anoa'i family and continuing to mentor other people and all. So his impact on the business definitely huge, and I'm sure that there are many different ways that he is going to be missed. And it's cool that they're going to do a 10-bell salute tonight because I always like when they do that, when they honor people. And currently scheduled, I believe, is still going to be that acknowledgement ceremony that they had planned. That's what it's being referred to right now. And that, of course, had been announced prior to Sika's passing. So this isn't something that like they had planned for that. Seems like it's more dedicated to Jacob Fatu being inducted into the bloodline and not being called Caesar Sikoa.
Why would this not be everybody just acknowledging Solo and in almost like a Hail Caesar moment? I'm still guessing that that's why they trademarked Caesar Sikoa, because I never thought that was a thing for Jacob Fatu.
Could be. And maybe they can kind of lump all these things together. I don't know if their plan was to do something that they're, incorporate the 10-bell salute into Sika's honor tribute and then go into the acknowledgement ceremony, or maybe do it separate because they don't want to blend things too much and make it seem like that's like part of the storyline, or, there's ways to go about this that could be better or worse. But they are calling him Jacob Fatu. So either they change his name during this acknowledgement ceremony, or they put that out there for Solo, or they've abandoned it. Maybe they just, after they put the trademark out there, maybe they don't really like the name. But It's something to look into later on tonight. They did trademark a different thing, though. Samoan Werewolf. And that, I would assume, it very much should apply to Jacob Fatu.
Well, yeah, it's just his thing.
Yeah. And
I'm surprised he's giving it to them.
They, they did the whole thing with Tongaloa and Tamatanga, where they ended up... I'm not the biggest fan of the names, but the right-hand man idea, okay, that's not bad. But the infamous Tongaloa?
What did this man do? Besides, what was his crime besides being Camacho? I want to know.
Did he steal the bike? Is that what it
was? Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with this, because this is the most intriguing the Bloodline story has been, minus the Rock stuff, in quite a while, and I'm interested to see where it all goes from here. And Jacob Fatu can fucking work his ass off. And I'm just looking forward to seeing him get all the flowers.
Yeah, I saw the clip of the debut on SmackDown. I think it was one of the strongest debut angles they've done for a wrestler in a very long time. And immediately, and having watched some stuff on the indies and like seeing his presentation coming into it, I just thought, Solo's fucked. Because he's not the guy. He's not the guy in the Bloodline. There's a new guy in the Bloodline, and he is like 10 times the worker, 100 times more charismatic. So yeah, Solo is going to find his way back to being a side character in this.
Well, he has to
Bloodline
find
journey.
himself. Like the Solo Sikoa character originally was like, I'm a street champion, and I'm a little more, he's kind of more of a brawler in that way. Then they made him a silent killer that does the Samoan spike. So he has to like find a character that fits him. Now he's doing the wannabe mob boss. So once he figures it out, I think it'll be good. Not as good as Jacob Fatu, but he'll be good.
As I kind of take the thing that he's had, what was it, 4 years now? Probably should have been out. It feels like it's been
like 2 years. He was only on NXT for like 6 months before they called him up.
Definitely longer than 6 months. But
it's hard to tell because they also gave him that North American Championship for a week when he was on SmackDown, and then
he was on NXT for at least a year, and he debuted on Clash of the Castle 2022. So he's been on the main roster for nearly 2 years. So yeah, I'd say that he's been there probably 3 years, or at least on TV. And yeah, I'd say he shouldn't be absolutely the finished article yet, but the fact that they are pushing him in such a prominent spot when the new guy that's come in has already made, I'd argue, more of an impression than most of what Solo's done in his entire WWE run so far. That's probably indicative of the fact that he probably has more potential to be a formidable force for a guy like, say, when Roman Reigns comes back and there's this civil war within the Bloodline. I'd feel more impressed if it was Jacob Fatu running it rather than Solo.
So I just want to clarify, because I did say something. Apparently it was October 26, 2021. He was on NXT for a full year before he debuted with the Bloodline at Clash of the Castle. So yeah, Callum's got a bit of a point. And I don't know if he can lead the Bloodline, because he led Contra Unit in MLW, but he wasn't the mouthpiece. And if they wanted to make Heyman the full-blown mouthpiece, they could. But I do see where you're going as far as Jacob Fatu having a little more of the impressive killer instinct than Solo.
Yeah, well, Solo's has never been a blow-away promo either. It's not like anyone ever talks about that when they're referring to Solo either. So
yeah.
So they are perfectly serviceable. None of them are as good as Roman Reigns. None of them are as good as Paul Heyman. But that is, they're two of the better talkers in all of WWE. So it's a high bar to set yourself. But just from the energy that Fatu brings into it, and also the fact that he is just a more dynamic in-ring performer, means that, let's say, I'm more excited in terms of this Bloodline thing to see a Roman Reigns versus Jacob Fatu match than the Roman Reigns Solo Sikoa match.
it's hard for me to really judge too much because I haven't seen any like full matches of Jacob Fatu or anything, and I haven't heard him speak either. So it's, that's another major element that's going to either make him stand out from the other guys or, his future when it comes to that. Because generally speaking, I'm cool with just getting anybody on here. Like, the more people that they incorporate, cool, we're going to get some badass War Games match later on this year. I've heard good things about Jacob Fatu, and he seems like he's a much more dynamic performer than even like Tama Tonga and Tongaloa, and we still have Hikuleo that's going to be popping up here sometime in whatever the near future. Kind of thinking maybe even Money in the Bank, but the future for the difference between the two of them, I think a lot of it's going to depend on if he can talk. Can he?
I mean, yeah, he's very out of character. He's very charismatic. He reminds me a lot of Yoko in a way, where you would you see him out of character and he's just all the charisma and all the personality. Yeah, he's got a lot of upside.
Cool. Well, the Samoan Werewolf will get some kind of acknowledgement or something tonight. And, of course, we'll have our whole setup of everything else that happens. We'll talk about that when it comes to later on other things and all. But let's talk about how this might be the thing going forward. It seems like, I don't know, I can't get full 100% confirmation on this from the things I've Googled real quick, but it seems like SmackDown might be going to 3 hours and Raw going to 2 hours, and then not being censored as much when it comes to Netflix, based off of some of the things that Triple H has talked about recently, which we had our suspicions that could be the case, but that it all depended on a lot of other factors, and that just because it could happen doesn't mean that it will. Well, it seems like that is going to be the case, and I am... I'm not the biggest fan of the 3-hour Monday Night Raw episodes and stuff, but
that's putting it mildly, wouldn't
it? But I've been enjoying the product more lately, and the concept of switching over and just being like, all right, well, now SmackDown, it's going to be 3 hours and Raw is going to be 2 hours. I see a lot of people reacting to this where it's like, oh, that's such a big difference, whatever. It really isn't. It just means you flip-flop which thing you switch.
Not your Monday night.
Yeah, that's a big difference when it comes to certain things. Like if you want to go out on Friday nights and stuff, and I would rather my Monday night be 3 hours than my Friday night, to be perfectly honest. But then, I'm still investing roughly the same amount of time per week on this, so I don't think that's drastically different. And then that means that in the next draft, SmackDown would get more draft picks than Raw. It's just you swap the blue and the red brand and the Friday and Monday night. I'm more interested, to be honest, in how much they can push not being censored. Because is that going to be a huge difference between the two shows? Or is it going to be a very minimal difference where they just don't have to worry as much about things? I highly doubt that Monday Night Raw is going to start to have people drop F-bombs left and right and, have full-blown nudity and a character that's a heroin addict and different things that are going to be more adult categories. But it could be something that makes it stand out from SmackDown. It could end up being, hey, Raw is the episodes where you can get some kind of grittier matches and you can get some characters that are a little bit more risque. And then SmackDown, you just get more of the same of what we've been seeing on, here and there. I'm all for it. I think that's cool.
I am absolutely all for them having an edgier product. And I think, I use the word edgier, but I think that term has gotten kind of a bad rap. It kind of just, you say edgier and people just think of supreme edgelord, doing the most obscene shit for the sake of it. But I think a little bit of, a little bit more blood, a little bit more swearing in the right spots will make it feel more intense. But I'm not sure how much they talked about not censoring the product. This was more about not censoring. Like, okay, you won't have the stupid thing on Fox when the crowd starts chanting "Holy shit!"
Mm-hmm.
Where okay, now there's a huge gap of just no sound because they don't want to hear the audio. Maybe The Rock will still be the only one who gets to say fuck, but we won't have to bleep out The Rock saying fuck. I don't know how much they're going to dive into it all the way, but I am interested to see where they go.
I mean, this kind of falls into the category for me. It's like I'll believe it when I see it, and probably I won't see it because I won't be watching. But either way, it's one of those things that okay, they can kind of promise this stuff, and they've kind of promised this sort of stuff in the past about going to a slightly, I'd say, edgier side of things. You had the Raw Underground as your final hour of Raw, so they have like dipped their toes in the water with this, and they've always reverted back to type. So I don't see this being, until they prove otherwise, I don't see this being any different or like this changing things too much. I mean, hell, you've got Liv Morgan talking about sending her nudes to Dom Nick Mysterio on like Raw right now. So does it need to get much edgier than it currently is?
Oh, it certainly can, at the least. Yeah, we've seen the Attitude Era, but
but like Attitude Era was very much of its time, and most people nowadays could go back and watch that if they've seen it for the first time and would say that it sucked. Other than the crowd was super into everything. Like it's an awful, just from a pure like neutrally looking at it perspective, it's just an awfully crass and horrible time, which perpetuates a lot of the negative stereotypes that people hold today about wrestling fans, true or otherwise. But yeah, I don't need to go back to an era of like bra and panties matches and like fake pregnancy angles and all this other like car crash reality TV. I don't need someone walking up to the ring with a gun or anything like that. It's just and also like certain things.
If Chad Gable wants to get his revenge, you let him do it, sir.
He doesn't need revenge. He won with the bullet still in his brain, probably. So it doesn't really matter.
Yeah,
either way. What does he need to give revenge for? It didn't affect him in the slightest. He just brushed it off and walked into the office the next day and said, "Yeah, I'm totally fine, ready to go. Going to qualify for Money in the Bank." But yeah, so. Yeah, I think that right now what they have is good for the audience to go for. And also, it does very much depend on the audience, because I guess with Netflix, the difference is that I know they have like a Netflix Kids side to it, but it's the adults that... I know it's obviously the adults to pay for cable and all that stuff as well, but it's the adults that have the Netflix account. They have control of that account. You probably won't have the kids having too much access to it and stuff like that. So maybe there's a bit more of a need to appeal to an adult audience when you're on Netflix as opposed to on TV at 7:00 at night I'd say mostly, but like you're going to have a more predominant kid audience that is just being able to watch it, just flick on the TV and it's there, that kind of approach. So maybe they'll be able to tailor the stuff on Netflix to a more adult audience. Not saying it needs to get super crass or anything like that, maybe just a bit more, less child orientated, which I think a lot of WWE kind of falls into.
A lot of this I think is going to be experimental, and I am at least down for them to be like, hey, let's not have to do the stupid censoring, and if the crowd's chanting,
fucked
like
up.
Holy shit, then it's not going to be holy, and then you're like, oh my god, I can't even hear the fucking promo.
Oh, I mean, I absolutely adore watching like AEW through the Fight app rather than like,
on life,
because like you literally hear MJF call like Tony Khan a fucking mark. It's just straight away, without any censoring whatsoever. So
Christian Cage saying "Go fuck yourself."
Was
so much more effective.
It's so much more. I think that I'm always on the bit of the fence because I kind of, in a comedy show, I kind of prefer bleeping than actual swearing.
It depends on what the intention is, I think.
Because bleeping, it lets your mind go to the imagination a little bit. That you think about what is it they're actually saying. You can kind of most of the time you can figure it out, but like it leads that little bit of wiggle room to it. But I like that kind of the censorship aspect actually adds to the comedy. Whereas if it's a wrestling show, you kind of want that more immediate visceral thing, especially if it's just used sparingly. Like you get away with like one fuck in a show, then that's fine.
It is weird, like the MPAA rules where you can only say fuck once in a movie. If you say it twice, it's already rated R. Like, yeah, oh man, kids can't hear that twice or else it's gonna be a problem. But I hate, pretty much across the board, unless it's a comedy thing. Because look at like Jimmy Kimmel has that whole thing where it's like the unintentional censoring and it kind of makes it seem like it's somebody saying something bad. You get the right censoring in there, it could be really funny. But I hate with a passion when I'm hearing these promos on WWE or AEW or whatever, and it's just the audio just keeps crapping out because then you can't even hear half the promo, and that throws me off because I'm just listening to the weird audio distortion and all. Same as when like you're watching a movie. Like I never watch movies anymore. I learned my lesson way earlier in my life to never watch a movie for the first time on TV because of the amount of things that they cut out. And one of my favorite instances of that, if anybody's ever watched the movie Glengarry Glen Ross, there's a part in it where Al Pacino, fucking great movie. Most people wouldn't like it. Al Pacino is going on a big rant, and he's swearing up and down, and he's yelling at Kevin Spacey and all this. And almost every line they tried to redub it with a different thing, and it was like there's like a part in it where he says like you were meant to help us, not to fuck us up. And it's like, you can get away with like, you were meant to help us, not to screw us up. Okay. It's fine. But he says, what are you going to do about it, asshole? And they had it replaced with, what are you going to do about it as help? And I was like, this is whoever
what?
did as help. What are you going to do about it as help? And the person whoever did the dubbing for it didn't sound the slightest bit like Pacino too. So it was almost like if somebody did the thing from The Simpsons where it's like the Twin Towers episode, for anybody that's watched that one of my favorite ones, where Homer goes to New York. And it's like, please wait for Officer Steve Grabowski.
Mr. Black.
Yeah, Mr. Black, yeah. Still can't have Aleister Black without thinking about that.
I mean, have you ever seen the TV edit of the snakes on a plane scene?
Oh, is it like these mother flipping snakes on this Monday to Friday plane?
Oh, I mean, I've just had to look at it now just to make sure. Like, I think it's monkey biting snakes.
Monkey biting snakes on this. And it's what?
Monkey fighting snakes on these.
I'm tired of these monkey fighting snakes on this monkey fighting plane. That's terrible.
Yeah, so I mean,
it's like, but it's the truth. Like, imagine if, everybody talks about King of the Ring '96. Imagine if he said, "Yeah, Austin 316 says, I just beat your butt." Yeah.
So I just soiled your behind or something.
Austin 316 says, I just with your ass help.
Yeah. You talk about your John 316. Well, Austin 316 says, I won the previous match. We're not friends anymore, Jake. So, I mean, even that, I'd be more interested to see if they were like, oh, we have to do immediate dubbing. That could be kind of fun. But yeah, something to keep your eyes on, that we might get more adult themed stuff on Netflix and less of this BS. I have to say BS, so I censor myself.
It's going to depend on the culture too, because if the culture gets super into like Sons of Anarchy, you get weird biker shit. If the culture gets super into Jerry Springer, you get like literally years of crass TV because everybody got swept up in Jerry Springer.
What is the most like popular thing right now? Probably. Because it's not reality shows anymore.
It's a lot harder now because everything's so niche, right? Like everything is so fragmented.
You just ask like, what's the most popular thing just in general right now?
Yeah, like because there's a lot of things that are like.
I'd say it's like Love Island or RuPaul's Drag Race, something like that.
Yeah, it's probably still a stupid reality show, but it might be like a Love Island or take your pick on. Oh, well, the Hawk Tua girl is very, very.
Oh, I loved. I saw the great meme where somebody had her mixed up with LA Knight, and it was "Let me talk to you." Let's see what the most popular TV shows right now, according to Rotten Tomatoes, which
Oh, but that's like the fancy
the
stuff,
rating stuff.
Yeah, that's like, so that'll be like was it Billions or something like that?
It'll be like
probably.
Bridgerton or some shit.
According to number one is The Acolyte, which if you click on anybody's actual reviews, that's not going to be the case because hashtag fuck the sequels.
Not what you usually say.
Yeah, but fuck them all now. It's not just Last Jedi that sucks. It's everything.
Well, people were super into Mandalorian.
Yeah, that was good.
That was good. Yeah.
Or for like a year and a half, a season and a half of it, probably.
Yeah, I mean, Mandalorian was mostly good, and there's like about 3/4 of Rogue One is cool, and
I love Rogue One. Rogue One was great.
There's like maybe a scene of Solo that is okay. I don't know if there actually is a full scene, but
damn,
Solo, a Star Wars story, not Solo Sokoa. It's different how they get their names. One of them sucks. I wonder which one that one is. Well, according to Netflix, Bridgerton and Perfect Match and Sweet Tooth and whatever. So, I mean, they're all over the place. Keep an eye on The Mole, everybody, for that matter. At some point today, my post about on Collider is going up, but I'm much more tapped into The Boys and a lot of these shows. I've never heard of these before. What's Nightmares and Daydreams from Joko Anwar or Presumed Innocent? Huh? Okay, so, but it doesn't seem like there's like a big thing that's like super popular right now, the way that like South Park was super popular back in the 90s.
Because again, everything is so fragmented.
Yeah.
I mean, the big things that I heard people talking about in that sort of is Billions was like a big one when that was going until it ran its course recently, and the new one that seems to be flocking around is The Bear now. Is the
That's right,
the
The
big
Bear's
TV
so
show.
I haven't seen it yet.
So good. Yeah, watch The Bear. You'll love it. You'll have a bit of an existential crisis, but you're doing that anyway, so enjoy it.
Maybe we'll get more cooking things with WWE, but one thing, if they do go into the more adult side of it that we're not going to get because he's not going to be around for it. Too Cold Scorpio got arrested for stabbing someone.
What do you mean? How much more adult do you want to get?
He claimed at least that was like self-defense and stuff, so we got to put that out there that maybe that's the case. I haven't looked too much into it, but he is going to be missing some shows coming up in the future, a GCW show, a DDT show, I think somewhere in Japan he was scheduled, but he had some kind of a stabbing incident that happened earlier. I'm trying to look to find more information about this TMZ or something. It happened at Love's Travel Stop in Kansas City, Missouri. I don't know what that is, but it seems like it's a gas station of some sort. And that he had gotten into some kind of a scuffle with like a security guard, something involving like a cigarette, not able to smoke on the inside or whatever. And then that led to a fight and whatever. So that's interesting. I don't think anything super huge is going to come out of this, but then again, it's Too Cold Scorpio, so it's not something that people are going to track as much as it was somebody in WWE or AEW or whatever. But keep an eye out for that. That's the story. You guys have any thoughts?
I mean, not particularly right now. Just beyond it's not as bad as it sounds, but it sounds like it's pretty bad, regardless.
Look, I'm not joking when I say this. I just saw a YouTube short the other day
about Too Cold Scorpio stabbing someone.
It was about Too Cold Scorpio getting into the fight with Hawk, and that he was ready to get fatal, and the person who prevented him from doing so was Chris Benoit. Take that what you will. Like, that's what I saw. And then 2 days later, it was like, oh, he's arrested. He stabbed somebody. Like, oh, that's not great.
This guy apparently required dozens of staples and stitches. So that was a hell of a stabbing.
Hopefully,
YouTube algorithm
it
right now is
self-defense
like,
and everything. was as on the up and up as can be with something like that. But yeah, that's a shocking story.
And let's go over to this. Let's get into this side of things. So this is, I don't know how to transition out of this. Insert transition. Kayla Braxton and Dijak are leaving WWE. Dijak is already gone from WWE, and Kayla Braxton, I believe, Friday. No, is it next Friday or is it today? That might be like her last day.
It's right now.
It's today. So yeah, okay. So I thought it might have been next week's, but that is both shocking and not shocking in some ways to me for both of them. Because Dijak, he was sent back to NXT. He was doing some good stuff over there. He got drafted to Monday Night Raw in the draft, and now he's come out and he's said like, "Oh, I knew that I was screwed when that happened," which yeah, it makes sense.
He did a wonderful 90-minute interview with Sean Ross Sapp. He gets into more about Retribution than I think you would ever expect to hear. He just tells all about meeting Vince. That's always some interesting stories. And it's a really good interview. I suggest you all listen to it. The most shocking thing to me here is that the actual letter he released announcing that he would not be continuing on in WWE, where he said that they stonewalled him, that he wanted to negotiate, and they were just like, yeah, nah, that's shocking.
It's also shitty, because if you don't want to re-sign somebody or whatever, just, let them go. Just tell them. Just say adios and let them leave earlier.
I think it's just indicative of not so much like the WWE system. I'm not just trying to throw WWE under the bus or anything along those lines. It's actually more typical of the UFC style of doing things, and now WWE is very much in bed with the UFC. This is kind of how they operate. Unless you're like one of the top names, so if you're a Becky Lynch, a Roman Reigns, a Seth Rollins, that kind of ilk, then you're going to be essentially given an offer, and then if you say, okay, let's negotiate on this, to say, no, that's the offer, like take it or don't take it, and we'll just, and not even to the point of like saying, oh yeah, that's just it, we're not going to push you one way or the other. Like if you don't want to take that offer, then we're done. Pretty much just to sit on that until they either decide, oh, it's kind of down to the last minute and they haven't agreed to a contract, so I guess I've just got to sign this one, or you just get let go. I say Dijak is just one of those people who is, albeit very talented, is just an undercard guy. So he's very much expendable. So unless they're willing to just sign the first offer that's presented to them, it's very unlikely that those people will get a higher offer. Because they can replace them very easily.
Stone Cold Steve Austin.
What about Stone Cold?
He was expendable.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not too shocked about Dijak not being re-signed. I kind of saw the writing on the wall when it came to that a while back before with like the whole Retribution thing, that his career just wasn't going in the trajectory that I was hoping that it would, because I thought originally that Dijak was really solid and he had a lot of upswing to him, and with the right tweaks of the right character and some better promo work over the course of his training through NXT and all, that he would be some future world champion or something even, but didn't go in that direction. And once you are stuck with T-Bar, you kind of know how things are going to go. Some people are able to bounce back, and I think that Dijak should have been able to, but clearly they didn't really want to be that invested in him, and that sucks.
So he tells a story to Sean about when he first gets called up during the pandemic, and he goes to introduce himself to Vince in Vince's office wearing a tank top. And he didn't know at the time, but like Vince was apparently very not okay with this. And he ended up having a conversation, which Dijak says is hilarious in hindsight, and it is, with Vince McMahon about professionalism.
Yeah.
So maybe it was just one of those things of like, this guy approached me wearing a tank top, we're gonna call him T-Bar. Fuck, just fuck this guy.
Tank bar. That's what it was the whole time.
Maybe he was trying to think of like, what do they call those things? It's a T-Bar. He's T-Bar. Oh, fuck him.
It sounds ridiculous, but that might have actually been it.
No, I'm dead serious. That might have just been what it was, because he pitched Retribution, not like the actual original idea where the Guinea people were just doing, protest things on WWE, but like he pitched the group and it being, him and Mason and like Ciampa and all that, and maybe they're just like, it's this dude's idea. Send Bobby Lashley. He's gonna tap him out in 4 minutes. Like you just never know with these things.
Where do you guys think he's gonna end up going?
He's gonna do everything.
Toward the Indies and then eventually sign somewhere else afterward.
And then probably be like, I can be a top guy in TNA.
He could be. He'd, immediately jump into the title picture and it would make sense.
I don't want him in AEW for beyond just a couple of one-off appearances, but I don't want him signed with AEW. Just, we don't need another close to 40-year-old person to spend the last 10 years in WWE in that roster. It's bloated enough as it is.
Even if you get to see him against a couple of those guys that you would really have good matches with?
Yeah, I say like one-off appearances, don't sign him permanently. Like, just have him come in, have those matches, lose those matches, and head out. Like, New Japan should be looking at a guy like him. They're looking for a new gaijin wrestler to go into their groups. TNA, of course, like he would be a top star there. But yeah, definitely not like an AEW regular guy.
Admittedly, and this is no disrespect to the guy in the role, but if it happened like a month or two ago, I would have enjoyed him in the Big Bill spot.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's a better worker than Big Bill, so it would have been fun to see.
I think Bill's a better promo, though.
Yeah.
So, value which one with Jericho? Do you want the guy that can piggyback off the promos or a different person in the ring? But he's the type of guy that I could see, succeeding in a lot of different places. So he could be a top guy in TNA. He could have some big shoes to fill in like New Japan or popping around in like GCW and all those other things. For my personal preferences, because I like Dijak, I'd rather him be in AEW so I could see more of his matches and stuff. But then again, we don't know what he necessarily wants to do on that front. I kind of get the feeling from the little bits and pieces that I've seen with different interviews that he would probably rather go to AEW and just kind of, be on the second biggest promotion. But maybe not. Maybe he actually wants to go and tour around.
I could see him wanting to go to tour around because, like, bro, haven't you gotten your fill of being just like, hey, I'm earning a paycheck. Don't you want to do, some matches? Like, you work your ass off to try to, get noticed. I imagine he's one of those people who wants to be in the ring. I don't see him having a top spot in AEW, so don't bother going there yet.
Mm-hmm. Well, at least when it comes to...
I could see him go to AEW as a pure Ring of Honor guy.
Yeah, it could be that too.
Like, if they start hiring people in that way, I'd be all for it.
Yeah, if he was just like a top, you could push him as a top guy in Ring of Honor in the way that you wouldn't be able to in AEW.
Now you say a pure ROH guy. Do you mean he's going to be the pure champion? Nah, I had to. I know. Fuck me.
Now was he a Nana guy? When he was in Ring of Honor originally, was he a Nana guy?
I don't remember. That's way before I was watching Ring of Honor.
I'm gonna look that up because that could be interesting.
The thing, like, he was in Ring of Honor in like 2000, like 2010, 2011. It was right around that time.
Yeah, he was a Nana guy. I thought I remembered watching that, and this is a promo of theirs from 2016. So that'd be cool just to get that thing, see if there's any legs there, because Nana's great, and I think Dijak is really good in the ring. I'm disappointed that they let him go, because I thought he was doing great work in NXT. But, not everybody can be hired all the time. I do understand that's the nature of the beast. And hopefully he lands on his feet.
So let's talk Kayla. Kayla Braxton, very soon to be Kayla Becker. Well, she's always been Kayla Becker,
she's
what I mean?
Kayla Becker in life.
Yeah. Very soon to be back to just Kayla Becker, let's put it that way. Had the option to re-sign with WWE, but she chose not to. So it's a different setup than what the Dijak thing is. And she very much seems like she's just like, I kind of want to go and do other things.
Yeah,
so
I don't blame her.
Credit to her to have that sensibility and to stand up for herself and be like, I'm just going to do some other things and I don't want to still be here anymore. She's probably reached a point in her career where she realizes there's nowhere to go than where she is in WWE. Like, she's essentially their top broadcast person. She's been a part of shows like the pre-show panel things, and she's been a part of the bump, and she's a backstage interviewer. And once you've done WrestleMania and you've done, you've gone to Saudi and you've done this and you've done that, and like you traveled around and you've worked with all these people, what else really is there? So maybe they are in the process of renegotiating, and she was like, I just don't really like the salary enough and I'm going to go elsewhere and get paid more for my name. Or maybe she just is bored with WWE and, whatever the methodology is. I don't blame her.
I'll start with what I think is the only downside first. Over the last couple of years, she really had a solid run as a character with the bits with Heyman, which I thought, just a small portion of just the excellence that was that early Bloodline run with Kayla and Paul Heyman constantly bickering. That was fun on Smack Talk or Talking Smack as well. I think this makes all the sense in the world because, a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, she moved out to California. She said as much that, hey, there's more opportunities here in entertainment outside of wrestling. And, but to a much smaller degree, Tony, but you and I both know, if you get the chance to do something in the broader scope of entertainment, just take it. WWE is an open door. You can always come back.
Well, we also know that if you have an opportunity to do something in this space, you got to take it because these opportunities are pretty garbage across the board. And, I recommend people to put their names out there and stuff. But at the same time, the job market's really bad. So to bet on yourself and to leave a cushy position.
The job market's really bad, but we haven't been getting WWE checks.
It's a big difference too. Yeah. But, look at Matt Camp. He just recently talked a little bit more about how he got released from WWE, and I'll, give a major amount of props to him for having the balls to say, what's kind of bullshit is that right before I got fired, they're talking about how we're all a family, and then they just say, fuck you. Yeah. These companies should be held accountable for these things. It's absolutely ridiculous the way that things are lately.
I just think we need to move on from that language. The era where that was the way to try to entice people is over. Just move on from that whole we're a family language. You don't have to completely move on. You can treat people like human beings, but the whole you're gonna be so happy here. You're part of the family now. Don't do that.
Yeah, the issue isn't the phrasing. The issue is that people don't mean it.
Yes,
because there's a big difference between we're like a family here, and then you're the type of company that tells people hey, it's okay that you have to call out because your kid is sick. That's fine. You can, we can sort this all out. And then a company that's you have a job for life, and then they fire you the next day. That's been happening more than once this year with WWE alone. And then when you talk about other companies, that's a different story too. But I think Kayla is, I don't even think, I know that Kayla leaving WWE is going to have a bigger impact than Dijak leaving. And that's not a crap on Dijak. I like Dijak. I just was talking about how I wish that he was doing more in WWE. But she was definitely the top interviewer that they had. the main person that they were going to. If they needed somebody on a panel, they threw Kayla on there. If they had somebody backstage with something, Kayla can fill in that spot. I wonder who's going to be the one that steps up, because they don't have Matt Camp anymore. They don't have Mackenzie Mitchell anymore.
Yeah, you got Kathy Kelly. She's great.
It's got to be Kathy Kelly, right? I mean, they can't even hire somebody like Alicia Tao because they just assigned her for AEW. So is this going to be like, well, we got rid of 3 of our main people in the broadcast spectrum this year.
The actually really good people, like Renee chose to leave, Kayla's choosing to leave. Mackenzie Mitchell's ridiculous.
I still don't get that. Yeah.
They'll never let her go. But yeah, I imagine it'll just be Kathy Kelly.
I mean, they seem to like Jackie Redmond a lot. Maybe Jackie's going to be
very good. Yeah.
More in that spot. And Megan Morant still doing quite a bit. So, maybe, is Sarah Schreiber still around? I think I saw her recently on something. Like just backstage in NXT or something.
Who was doing NXT? Didn't she work with Sexy Red?
That's true. That was her, yeah.
At the pay-per-view, yeah. So she's still around.
Scott Stanford still doing stuff in Stanford. Always think that was weird.
Yeah, but he likes being...
Yeah, he's off on the side doing... Because he does tons of other stuff, too. I was in an Uber a couple weeks ago, and I just was overhearing, like, Scott Stanford here for, like, some kind of other fucking news thing. And I'm like, hey, look at that. It's that guy. Yeah, when it comes to Kayla... she's been doing some great stuff, so it sucks to see her go. And I hope that whoever fills in that spot, and eventually when they sign somebody else, that they have just as much personality, if not more.
By the way, if you're gonna leave WWE, Madison Square Garden's a great place to stop. Like if you're gonna do a final show, I'd want my final show to be at Madison Square Garden.
Think that they're gonna do any kind of like stuff with her and Paul Heyman tonight?
I think Heyman will do something special with her, yeah.
It'd be great if they made that like a storyline thing where he's like, I'm getting sick and tired of you doing this, you're fired or something. So it can kind of be like, there you go. I'm written off the television in kayfabe mode. I don't know. We'll see. Any thoughts on Kayla, Callum?
She was very good at what she did. So it will be a miss, but still probably just unpack another blonde woman from their storage facilities and just put her in, stick her in front of a microphone and then just get going.
I like it.
I hope that she doesn't follow the Charlie Caruso path out of WWE and become a MAGA enthusiast.
Oh, is that what she did?
Yeah.
She's very,
Charlie
very
Caruso
MAGA.
Just went full MAGA.
Yeah.
That's okay. We don't need to get into that stuff. Everybody that follows this podcast.
If we're talking TV content, would you like to talk about the debate?
I did not watch it because this country is fucking stupid, and
the fact that it comes down to like an 81-year-old man who is barely coherent and a 78-year-old man who is like an outright liar, but
and shits himself in public,
and becoming less and less coherent. I mean, they're both probably at that stage now in their life. But I mean, I do love the memes coming out there of Bernie Sanders holding his money in the bank briefcase.
Yeah, I wish, man.
But even he's like,
he was
is there anyone young or like has new ideas that there's maybe slightly more connected to the needs of the modern day that is able to take over the country?
I mean, I can name a couple people, but they actually I don't know if she's old enough to run. But
it's because the smart people know that like there's nothing worse than being the president or the prime minister or anything like that. The people that would actually do the best job are people that people know that they would want to be anywhere else than in that position.
And arguably, there's a lot more power in being a senator than there is in being president. But
my thing is completely embarrassing, but we have options and they have options. By the way, neither Trump nor Biden has officially been picked by either party. You can change direction here. You're just outright not choosing to.
And can we get like the U.S. government equivalent of what's been happening in WWE in some ways where like all the bad shit comes out and those people get pushed out.
Well, but like, even to say that, it's like when you look at WWE, even without the heinous sexual crimes he's accused of, Vince McMahon was just a really old, senile man that needed to go.
Mm-hmm.
That's where we're at on both sides of the aisle here, and I went to sleep crazy because I watched the debate and it was just like, oh, we're fucked.
Yeah.
Like, it's just terrible. I want other choices.
Yeah, we're fucked.
There's your political take from Smark.
I fixed America once with Peacock, but
and good things were good when Tony fixed America.
Yeah. Shout out to Peter for that. If you want me to be president, let me know. I would surely do a fucking better job than some of these people. But I've long said in the past I'd probably be murdered within the first week of being president.
You'll have a heart attack within the first week. I don't want to see you be president.
I'm gonna have a fucking heart attack by the end of this year as it is. Let's be honest. When you get people that go, hey, you're here for a different thing. How come your blood pressure is the way that it is? And you're like, I don't know. Can we focus on the reason I'm here today? Donate to the Patreon, everybody. All right. Let's talk about Ludwig Kaiser being injured. Let's talk about somebody else's misfortune instead of mine. That sucks. Ludwig Kaiser was injured during his match with Braun Breaker this past week on Monday Night Raw. I don't believe that they've said exactly like the full details of this yet. I've looked here and there, and I've seen some things that say that his arm is injured or that his ribs were injured. I saw one thing that I don't know why the hell this ended up being out there, but one report that they took down, and I can't remember which site that it was. It was something like wrestling something or other. So maybe it was just like some bullshit thing or whatever. It said that he had a career threatening injury. And I was like, whoa, that changed quite a bit. And then I couldn't find it again. So I was like, all right, maybe they're just, sensationalizing this.
But, career threatening injury sounds fake.
Yeah, I was just like that, nothing else was reporting that or whatever. But it seems like the plan was for him to be in the Money in the Bank qualifying match and that he has been replaced. So that's why we have Ilya Dragunov in there, which is weird enough as it is, because they had announced
supposed to be in the Chad Gable.
Right. They announced that and then they decided to backtrack on that. So that's very strange too. But we know that Money in the Bank, of course, we're going to talk more about that a little bit later on in next week and stuff. But there is going to be a qualifier next week. It's not going to include Ludwig Kaiser. He is out for whatever the amount of time is. Most reports seem to say that it's something about his arm, and I don't know when that injury happened. It could be the table spot, maybe. I thought that it happened with Sheamus's kick and that he had some kind of like a concussion, or that it happened when Sheamus had him up for a powerbomb and then Braun Breaker speared Sheamus, and the way that Kaiser had fallen, I thought maybe he fell in a way that like hurt his ankle or his, hit his head again or something, whatever. But as far as I'm aware, I can't find any like guaranteed information about this. Do you have any more details?
No, honestly, the Kaiser thing, I've only seen the initial report from WrestleVotes, and Sean hasn't had anything too major on his status. So I assume we'll learn more as more comes out, but nothing crazy right now that I've seen.
Well, of course, when we find out more information, then we'll let everybody know.
By the way, he's not on the injured reserve. Where's Giovanni?
Giovanni Vinci is waiting out his contract until they release him, it seems, at this point.
That's really sad.
Yeah, he'll be joining Dijak soon in TNA.
I mean, they've not used him, I believe, once on SmackDown. They might have been on like a Battle Royal or something like that, but they don't care. And it's strange to me when that happens too, because I don't know if maybe I'm just too fucking logical, because I get told that by a lot of people here and there. Oh, that just makes too much sense, and that's your problem, which is like, that's baffling that people can even say that. Yeah. But I would think if you're sitting around this like conference table or whatever, you're one of these writers for WWE, and you're told, hey, we don't really want to invest in this person going forward. Don't pitch anything for them. We don't plan on having them be somebody. we're probably going to release them in a few months.
Just let them go.
I would think either just let them go, or I would think, okay, well then let's use them as a jobber and have them lose matches to people, because look at like the people that are on the roster right now. You could use somebody to lose to some of these people. Giovanni Vinci's on the SmackDown brand, and if you want to put over a Tamatanga or somebody, have Jacob Fatu beat the living shit out of him.
That's what I was saying about Solo. I was like, the Apollo Crews is there. You can give Solo some wins, but they don't want to do that. And I'm all right with letting guys go that you're not going to use. I just think that it's crazy that you get to that point to begin with.
Yeah. So the setup of that, when it comes to Ludwig Kaiser and planning out the future of all that stuff is kind of up in the air or whatever. But let's talk a little bit about Monday Night Raw, any of the other things that had happened. The main thing basically happening, we do have Money in the Bank qualifiers. The women's side of it, Lyra Valkyria had moved on. Chad Gable beat Braun Strowman and Bronson Reed. And we did, a couple other segments here and there with some other stuff, but a lot of that we're going to get into with Money in the Bank down the line. A big story that happened on there was this Bo Dallas and Wyatt Six video package thing, where Michael Cole had been given a VHS tape by Nikki Cross, and that then kind of popped me for a moment, because I was just like, oh, who has VHS tapes anymore? But they played this video, and it was Bo Dallas being interviewed by Uncle Howdy, being as brazen as it can be when it comes to, hey, Bray Wyatt's my brother and he died, and this storyline is changing, and it's going to be about Bray Wyatt and his legacy. And there's a tweet that had been put out yesterday of, how did you feel when your brother died? And that like whittled down the letters to just become Howdy. It seems like a retcon that they're going to be saying Uncle Howdy is named after some kind of response to Bray Wyatt's passing, even though Uncle Howdy was around before Bray Wyatt had died. So yes, retcon in that way, if that isn't being the case. But I'm all over the place with this. I think that there are massive positives to this, and I can understand exactly why people are upset about it, because I do think when you blur the lines, you run the risk of people being like, oh, this isn't in good taste, and there's an issue with the retcon thing, of course, is something that's like, it can be kind of stupid in some ways, but I like this better than if they would have just been like, it's Uncle Howdy in exactly the same way that he was before.
I don't like the VHS tape thing, because I think I get what you're going for, but it's weird. Like, I don't know why they felt the need to make it that retro just so they can look what's on a VHS, so you get the VHS filters. Okay. I like this better than murdering people last week, because this is easier to follow up on. This is something we've seen in wrestling where people pass, both real and in fiction, and you have these kinds of runs. And I thought this was more effective than the original, hey, they're just splattering blood all over the place. So I'm guessing we'll see more of these videos explaining how Dexter Lumis becomes Mercy the Buzzard, Joe Gacy becomes Huskus Pig Boy, and all that. But I'm ultimately going to say thumbs up, if not for the sheer shock of Uncle Howdy asking Bo Dallas, don't you feel like you're ripping off your brother? And how did you feel when your brother died? I just wasn't expecting that at all.
Yeah, as that. I haven't watched the full interview, because obviously I'm not watching live. But the bits pieces I've seen, it feels more like visceral and emotive than the Freaky Horror Show thing they decided to pull off last week instead. I feel like if they started off with this and then had, honestly, I would have these as the build up rather than the stupid QR codes. Like, give me 4 weeks of these videos coming through, and then you have your big reveal moment with all like him having his new flock together doing something. Then I think that you're actually on something. As okay, you've really built up anticipation for it, rather than having people having to go through like pass to parcel to figure out what they're meant to be doing or what this story is. So yeah, I think that this is a much better direction for establishing the characters and building story behind their collective, and hopefully there are more like this. I think if they'd have gone further down this route and not just immediately gone with the whole murder everyone in the production area, then I think it would have been more effective. I think they've gone like they got to point C before they tried A and B. That's kind of my thought about it.
I agree.
We did briefly talk about Liv Morgan sending nudes to Dominic Mysterio. A lot of people very envious of him for that.
Well, and again, loads of people referencing, and I don't know whether it is, I assume it's not intentional, but they can't be so blind to the optics of the fact that she's doing this storyline when the whole company is being sued by someone who said that like Vince would do that sort of activity. So it feels. That's like, I'm not saying they're doing that in order just to deliberately mock that situation, but there's a little tone deaf.
Is my answer to that. I don't think. First of all, I don't think that they're doing it to mock that, and I don't think that that's a thing. I think they're trying to do something that's realistic. It sucks that it does happen to mirror Vince's shittiness, but I don't think they're like, let's do this story with Liv and Dom so that it can be, a take on this.
Well, yeah. Well, they are okay. You make the argument, but they are definitely doing a storyline where a woman is sexually harassing a man.
Yes,
in the workplace.
I don't think it's intentional, but they are definitely not seeing how that can be interpreted.
Yeah. Like, and it's like she is the heel. I don't mind heels doing shitty things. That's what bad characters do. They're supposed to do things which go against the grain of like what's morally right. Because then when they get their ass kicked by the good guy wrestler, then you actually hate the person that they're beating. So I don't mind the idea of doing that. It's just a really bad timing for them to do a story like this. But they've decided to go ahead with it anyway.
No, I'm not saying like that this is you, but I saw a lot of people immediately jump to that, and until it was pointed out, like it wasn't in my, that it didn't immediately leap out to me, because it's like they're doing this story on the show. I didn't think about it. Yeah, granted, optics aren't great, but ultimately I'm going to give them I think it's just a show pass.
What do you guys feel about we'll talk about it next week, the Gunther and Rollins and stuff. One of the other things that happened on Raw was Liv Morgan was able to convince R-Truth to allow the Judgment Day to get a tag title shot. And Judgment Day's Finn Balor and JD McDonough are now the new World Tag Team Champions, having beaten Awesome Truth for those belts. And I can't say that I'm like super thrilled or on the opposite side of it, not happy with the idea of this happening, but it's kind of indicative of what side of it you're talking about for me. If you go, hey, Awesome Truth dropped the belts, I go, okay, cool. I wasn't the biggest fan of what they were doing right now. I like Awesome Truth, but it just wasn't really working so well for me. Cool. Who did they drop the belts to? And it's like JD McDonough and Finn Balor. And I go, oh, okay. Well, because I was really hoping that we would see the Creed brothers do something with Chad Gable, win those belts, and get back on track. To go back to the Judgment Day,
They don't have to have it forever. We've been beating this drum all year, but
then who did they drop it to? And then where do you go from there? Because right now,
right back to Awesome Truth.
You think they're just trading them?
Well, they did that like I saw the online video that was going around of that R-Truth and the Miz saying to the Miz that they should challenge for the titles at SummerSlam because it's in Miz's hometown of Cleveland.
Oh
so, yeah.
God, why wait till summer? This is the problem. Why are we waiting till SummerSlam? There's so much content to fill. I don't know. That alone makes me kind of sour on it, but you could do that. You could just wait till SummerSlam.
And if it just goes back to Awesome Truth again, I'm like, well, then I don't care. Like, I really kind of wanted something
This is
different.
a WWE tag division. That just is what it is. Outside of like, hey, the Usos held it for 600 days, and they lost it in the main event of Mania. That's an outlier. WWE tag titles are always just traded randomly back and forth.
Sucks because there are some good tag teams that aren't getting any traction in the division, and not that I would put them out there as like my top option. By far, I wouldn't, just to specify. But like, maybe this could have been a good spot for AOP to try to get Final Testament back on track a little bit. Instead of just having them do fuck all and then we're supposed to care about them. Maybe try to build them up a little bit.
Very concerned that they're like, Karrion Kross has beaten 7 world champions. Yeah, I'd care more if you fucking did anything with him.
Right.
Like, don't get me wrong, I like the Final Testament. That's the kind of thing that if we're doing fantasy booking, I probably pick them up because
there's potential.
There's limitless potential in the imagination, but when you use them the way you use them, nobody cares about AOP. Nobody cares about Karrion Kross right now.
Yeah, instead of you down with AOP, people go, who?
It's exactly, so I'm not crazy about that happening, but I like this for Finn and JD, and it makes sense. They get on Rhea's good side.
Like, I would have been more into if they would have waited until Dom was able to get into a tag title shot and won with Carlito. I would have been more down for that.
I don't like the Carlitoville. I really don't. I don't know why he's there. It's funny in a weird way that the oldest man in the group is looking at Liv Morgan's pictures being like, that's cool. Like, he's never seen a woman before. The Carlito thing's a miss for me. I don't think they needed to necessarily fill that spot.
On the NXT side of things, there are a few things worth talking about. A lot of them we'll just get into next week when it comes to Heat Wave and all. So I kind of want to speed run some of this. We do know that it's a Fatal 4-Way now. All stuff that made perfect sense. Some stuff that didn't really make a whole lot of sense. But the continuation of this whole Nathan Fraser Axiom impending split. I think one of the biggest things that happened on here, for the most part, outside of the things that we're going to get into when it comes to Heat Wave, was just Tavion Heights is a part of No Quarter Catch Crew right now. And a lot of people have been speculating about what happens with that, if he's going to turn heel with it, if that means that Damon Kemp is going to turn babyface and leave the group, or, whatever. But not a lot of people specifically talking about it. So I kind of wanted to get some thoughts about that. You got the, I know that Calvin has no thoughts whatsoever when it comes to this, but if you do, correct me. But
I like Tavion Heights.
I wasn't even listening. It's like when he started talking about NXT, I just started just clicking around on my computer. So
I like Tavion Heights. I assume he's just going to turn heel with the group, and they're meant to be a 4-piece with Gulak being stupid and not knowing how to shake hands. That turned into a 3-piece. So I think it'll only be good for them, and I think a potential team of Kemp and Tavion could be great. Kemp is really good. Tavion showed some flashes in that match. I'm thumbs up.
Any other stuff that happened on NXT that it's worth talking about? Probably not, right?
Because I don't know where we're going to get into it with Heat Wave. I'll get into it here. What the fuck are they doing with Brooks Jensen?
Yeah, it doesn't seem like he's going to be factored into there, but they are doing this whole. He's a free agent, but he keeps messing around on TV, and yeah.
But he literally helped Shawn Spears get to Heatwave. So they got to do something with him. I just don't know what. And if it's just now he's the underling of Shawn Spears, it's going to feel like kind of a letdown. I know over the weekend, his fiance posted something that was meant to mimic, like, hey, if you hear from him, reach out to me. I'm concerned for his mental health. I know a lot of people did not like that. I'm glad they're using him. Interested to see where it goes. He's a young kid, so he's got some upside just in, hey, you put him with the right guy, he can learn and be even better. I'm interested.
So let's move over to AEW then. And actually, before we get into AEW, let's talk about a little bit of New Japan stuff, because we do have quite a bit of New Japan stuff happening this week when it comes to Forbidden Door. But when we were trying to figure out some stories heading into this, Callum had pointed out that the merger with New Japan and STARDOM is settled. STARDOM is now owned by New Japan Pro Wrestling, officially a part of that. That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm a big fan of that.
Yeah, it shows that there's going to be some probably greater synergy between the two brands moving forward. I don't think it will be like a constant thing, because obviously New Japan, a firmly male roster, STARDOM firmly female roster, so they'll still do their own like separate shows. But I imagine they'll do maybe like a handful of crossover shows every single year now. So yeah, it's good to have that combination now, especially because it means that STARDOM is more accessible to AEW, and we get to see more crossover between that as well.
You think we're going to get any kind of a, like, the STARDOM title merging with the New Japan women's title kind of a thing?
Not yet, but maybe down the line.
Yeah, I'd say they'd keep those things separate for the time being.
Because, I mean, how many belts do they have in STARDOM?
It's probably closer to like 6 or 7.
Really?
So you have the red belt. I can't remember. I think it's just the World of Stardom Championship. You have the Wonder of Stardom Championship, which they're like main mid card title. You have the Goddess of Stardom titles, which are tag titles. The Artist of Stardom, which there's trios titles. The High Speed title. And then you have a series of, I guess I think the way they term it is, I don't know the exact title, but it's like this New Blood titles. So they have like for their kind of younger upstart ones that came through the ranks, it's almost like an NXT title and an NXT tag titles as well, for like primarily focused for people that are very like more inexperienced, have only been wrestling for like a year or two in the company. So they have a couple of those as well.
Nice. This is definitely a promotion that I know like nothing about. When I'm looking at this right now, I'm like, Artist of Stardom Champion, World of Stardom Champion. What are these belts? Like, is there like a purpose to them, or are they just names?
Well, he explained.
I just explained all of it. One of them's a world championship. One of them's a world championship. One of them's the equivalent of an intercontinental championship. One of them is a high speed championship, which is like the fastest.
Yeah, like the high speed one makes sense and stuff. And you mentioned like the New Blood thing, but
you
like,
don't understand why artist translates to trios. Got it.
Right? Yeah, like that's where I look at that. Not like if you just said like this is the Goddess of Stardom Championship, I'd be like, okay, well, what is that? And then it's like, oh, it's the tag belt. Oh, okay. Like at a quick glance, seeing New Blood Tag Team Champion and then Future of Stardom Champion, I'm like, okay, well then that's just young people. Where's the cutoff? Where's the, like that's very confusing for a complete outsider.
They do have restrictions to it in terms of the other one. You can't have wrestled for more than 3 years. So once you've hit 3 years for the Future of Stardom, you're no longer eligible to challenge for the Future of Stardom Championship.
Would you recommend a Stardom subscription, Alan, to anyone who's interested? Like, you subscribe, would you say you get your money's worth?
I'm no longer subscribed to them.
Fair enough.
I wanted to cut a few costs here and there, and I wasn't using it as much as I had previously been watching it. I mean, it all depends on your mileage of your interest in Joshi wrestling. if you have zero interest in it, then it's not going to be for you. If it's something that you want to try and get into, it's well worth it. I think that Stardom consistently has better women's wrestling than anywhere in the US. So I'd put myself forward for that. But they are going through a current transition period with the rise of Marigold, and also AEW coming through to like poach some talent as well. And WWE, I'm sure they'll come in to be looking into that as well, even though the relationship with their side of things will be going through Marigold. But presumably Marigold want to try and get hold of some people from Stardom down the line, so that's just a long-term thing. But yeah, if you are interested in Joshi wrestling, then I'd say Stardom is the kind of peak for people who are interested in that.
So
them and Tokyo Joshi Pro 1A 1B really.
See, that I would advise. The Wrestling Universe subscription, I think you get your money's worth because you also get Noah and you get other things in that regard. You get DDT. So like I think that's a good bang for your buck.
But maybe with this thing with New Japan linking together, maybe they'll have like a
if they get on New Japan World, that's different.
Well, I mean, I don't want nobody should be on New Japan World these days. That website is so awful. Like it's by far the worst. Like how would you describe it? Like digital media. How would you describe things like Netflix? It's the worst. It's the worst user experience I've ever encountered on any of those systems.
Really?
Yeah.
So like
they destroyed it. They absolutely fucked it. It was fine. It wasn't great, but it was fine. Like a year and a half, 2 years ago. Now it's completely unmanageable.
That's how I felt about the WWE app when they got rid of. Remember when Flash died? And like they changed everything. I thought the user experience got way worse. Peacock sucks, but that's a different.
But they haven't even ported over like from the change. They haven't even ported over all the archives yet.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, into that point, like where Tanahashi was doing those like 10 points of New Japan's future, they had to apologize for like the sloppy transition over to New Japan World. It's like Bushiroad is a multi-million-dollar company. They should be able to fucking fix their website and get it working.
That never seems to work, though, does it?
No, it doesn't. Like, I mean, to be fair, this is a company that also, in Tanahashi's speech, had to apologize for losing basically all of their Japanese customers' personal data in a leaking aspect because they had it all on one fucking USB drive that got stolen.
That always seems to be how it works. Honestly, like, isn't that always how it works? I got an email the other day. I don't remember the entity it was from, but they was just like, "We're sorry, your data got leaked." It's like, fuck you people, like, it's awful, all of you.
Stardom joining New Japan should be good.
Yeah.
Urge to Merge part of me just wants to be like, all right, well then can we just have like the New Japan Pro Wrestling women's division is called Stardom, and then you just have, you know, the World of Stardom Championship is the New Japan Pro Wrestling Stardom title, or, you know, whatever. And but, you know, different strokes for different folks. And
love that phrase.
I thought you were going to say love those strokes.
No.
I'm like, wait a minute, okay.
That's a different podcast.
Depends who the folks are.
Yeah. I don't know how to transition for that, but okay, let's go over to Dynamite, and we'll do some Collision and spoilers as well, and talk about these things that are heading up into the pay-per-view coming up this Sunday, of course. So plenty
everything,
plenty that had been changed here and there. They added some matches. They incorporated El Phantasmo is now part of the ladder match.
I think that's a spoiler. So earmuffs.
Yeah, fuck it, you're spoiled.
That was a Rampage. People might watch that anyway. So
yeah,
fair enough.
But we got another spoiler when it comes to replacing Brian Keith in the trios match with the Learning Tree. If you don't know what it is, wait a couple seconds, but it is going to happen on Collision. So Jeff Cobb is going to be that third member of that team. Jericho.
Wait. Okay, so full disclosure, I don't normally do spoilers. Are you telling me that they set up a match between Jericho and Suzuki to not do a match between Jericho and Suzuki?
Yeah.
It was not on the show. they'd already established that they were going to do the Learning Tree versus like Samoa Joe's crew on Forbidden Door.
Yeah, the Suzuki match is just going to happen on like Dynamite or something.
Weird. Okay, whatever.
Yeah, instead what happens is, and I don't know what the context of this means, but according to John R. Clark 12, shout out to them, Jericho is going to do a segment on Collision where he gives a lesson about Zambonis. Whatever that means. And then he gets jumped by Hook, Joe, and Shibata until Jeff Cobb comes and beats the shit out of him. And then it's like, okay, well, Jeff Cobb's that extra member.
So what I can only anticipate is that I imagine that the place they're doing it for is some sort of ice hockey arena, typically, because then maybe that'll be the reason why you put a Zamboni reference into it. But then the Jeff Cobb thing. So Jeff Cobb was initially listed on Forbidden Door a while ago as having an open challenge for his New Japan Television Championship.
Mm-hmm.
But now he's just going to be part of this match, which is odd because he's part of the same. I know, obviously, Will Ospreay's no longer part of New Japan, but he's in the same faction as Will Ospreay. Will Ospreay goes into this as one of the biggest baby faces, and he's obviously joined the heel faction for this. So it's an interesting layout. But yeah, Jeff Cobb is a very good wrestler, so he should add something to the match. He can definitely mix it up with Samoa Joe physically. It'll be like two clones bumping into each other at certain times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm down to see that. That's for sure. I'm down to see him up against, Shibata and Hook for that matter, too. And I've seen some good stuff from Jeff Cobb in the past. We got that changeover from, an update from the previous pay-per-view point podcast that we had done. We got some stuff when it comes to more of the Owen Hart Cup. We know at least a little bit of the spoilers when it comes to that, too. Shout out for the Collision side of that again, warning, blah, blah, blah. We got Hikaru Shida beat Deonna Purrazzo, and then they're continuing the feud with Thunder Rosa after that. Daniel Garcia started off this episode with MJF wanting to give him a match for All In, and then Will Ospreay being immediately following that by going, hey, you know what? I'm going to give you next week a title shot for the international title, and if I beat Swerve, then the other belt's on the line too, and Daniel Garcia beats the Butcher. So it's also just like, man, Garcia's having a hell of a week right now. And it's pretty cool to see him in like a prominent spot like that. But I do look at that and kind of go, oh, shouldn't that just be like Ospreay and MJF at All In then? It's kind of seemingly building a little bit more towards that. You think any chance there's a triple threat?
No, it'll just be Ospreay versus MJF.
I want it to be Garcia. I think it's really cool. I know, but like, come on. I can dream.
That's the story I think they're telling here, is that I think that MJF, the whole angle at the start of the show was to make MJF feel jealous of Ospreay being kind of like the new flavor of the month. And so I think that's going to build up his resentment to the point where he's promised Daniel Garcia the match at All In, but eventually he just goes, oh, fuck it, I'm fighting Ospreay at All In instead. And so Daniel Garcia gets pushed aside. And then that fuels his own resentment either towards MJF or to Ospreay, depending on what route you want to take with him.
Problem I have with that is I've seen Garcia get pushed aside already, and they don't usually come and find him again for a little while.
Well, yeah, that's the thing where you just have to, whether you want to have faith in the company storytelling or not, really. But that's the route that I think they're going to take.
Fair enough.
Do you think that's going to be a heel turn, or is it just I'm annoyed?
Again,
babyface,
it depends. Well, it depends. I think MJF will be turning heel off the back of that feud. I think that he'll have the match with Ospreay for the international title at All In. I think that Ospreay will beat him, and then MJF will turn heel against Ospreay. Maybe not immediately on that same night, but down the road, that'll be the source of his heel turn, is a obsession with beating Ospreay and reasserting himself as the top guy in AEW.
Some other things that happened. Good.
I was going to say, I don't know where Daniel Garcia really fits in that, but it depends on which side he kind of falls on.
We got Jay White beating Ray Phoenix for the Owen Hart Cup. We got this setup of Blackpool Combat Club and LAJ leading to a brawl with Tetsuya Naito, and then a stare down between Shingo Takagi and Bryan Danielson, just to kind of remind everybody that those matches are happening on the pay-per-view as well. A little bit more of the split between Toni Storm and Mariah May, with Mina Shirakawa slamming a bottle of champagne over Mariah May's head by accident when Toni Storm ducked. Good little, post.
I don't know. I really think that Toni Storm showed legitimate concern, and Mina kind of looked like she didn't care. So maybe that wasn't the route they're going.
That's the story, though.
Yeah, but
somebody's splitting.
I still see them fighting at All In, especially since they apparently beat Deonna, and it's going to be Shida advancing in the tournament. So I'm going all in on Mariah May at this point.
I don't know in what universe you thought Deonna Purrazzo was winning the Iron Man.
I just want to see her do things. That was a complete fan in me, I guess, thinking that she would win this thing. But I also thought before they made it for a world title shot that Kyle O'Reilly might win the men's Owen. And actually, now I say Kyle, I want to talk about that segment because that was confusing to me.
The conglomerate?
Yeah, what in God's name was that? Like, you have Kyle's out there wrestling Zack Sabre Jr. He's being watched by the Undisputed Kingdom and Gabe Kidd. Cool to see Gabe Kidd. It's announced that Gabe Kidd's going to team with Roddy. Kyle gets his arm hurt by Zack, so Kingdom checks on him. Gabe's pissed at the Kingdom.
He's not only pissed, he apparently took 2 shits, too.
Hey, he apparently took 2 shits and didn't flush while he was at AEW. That's great for him. Ishii comes out to, stand by Orange Cassidy against TMDK. Gabe Kidd's yelling at Ishii. Ishii's like, I was just like, what is happening?
Yeah, this was just like a smattering of random shit.
I liked it because it was fun to watch, but it was like, what are they doing?
Yeah, it was too many people in one segment. I also didn't really like the fact that they took away from him what was probably a very good Zack Sabre Jr. and Kyle O'Reilly match by constantly cutting back to Roderick Strong and Gabe Kidd sitting at ringside. Focus on the wrestling a little bit. That's what you're supposed to be. This apparently is the company where the best wrestle, but they want to focus on 2 guys sitting at ringside instead.
Watching the best wrestle.
We also had a whole another switch up when it comes to some stuff with the Forbidden Door card that we were talking about before. We were debating about whether or not it would make any sense for somebody like Okada to be on the card. And we had a whole discussion of maybe the Young Bucks do something else. Maybe they have something with the Acclaimed. Well, that sucks because you don't have anybody that's a crossover person. You throw somebody in there, whatever. Well, it ended up being a segment where the Acclaimed came out and they cut a promo about the Young Bucks, their future title shot, whatever. Young Bucks and Okada come out, talk about challenging the Acclaimed trios match at Forbidden Door. And then Billy Gunn says, hey, how about no for me? But I know somebody else that'll just fill in. And it's Hiroshi Tanahashi. So Scissor Ace is now a thing. And it's Tanahashi, Max Caster, and Anthony Bowens against Young Bucks and Kazuchika Okada. We also know some other matches that are added to the card, too, that we had talked about before, about the whole idea of the Lucha Bros and them maybe not necessarily being allowed to be a part of this because of the CLMLL thing and all that. Well, they are going to be on the card. So all of this is just it's kind of chaotic in a lot of ways. It's going to be one of the pre-show matches, 0 hour, I should say, is going to be the Lucha Bros and Mystico against Yoda Teton is his name, right?
Yeah.
And Hiromu Takahashi. They threw in there Mariah May against Saraya for the Owen Hart Cup. They threw in Chris Statlander and Momo Watanabe against Willow Nightingale and Tam Nakano. This was when I'm doing coverage for this stuff and there's just random shit happening and all that, I'm like, all right, some of these people, I don't know who the fuck they are. Some of this doesn't seem like it makes any sense. All of it's just kind of, and here's shit. There you go. It's throwing it out there. And I'm like, this is one of my issues with AEW. I want them to have a crossover thing for the crossover show. Just the same way as when WWE had Worlds Collide and it was Some of the matches weren't. And I was like, this is stupid. But man, don't fucking wait until the last minute to go, here's people. I don't know why I went Norm Macdonald right then. But throwing names out there and whatever, you reach a point where that just becomes, you definitely don't want to appeal to anybody but those hardcore pro wrestling fans. And I can see why there are a lot of people that I know. I'd say the overwhelming majority of the people that I know are getting progressively out of AEW because of things like this, because they're looking at this and going, I can't fucking get into any of this. My God, who the fuck are these people? And you just at the last minute announced this. Still, some of this pretty interesting. And if you know who the people are, then that's something you're going to mark out for. But, you know, how many people go to see a Marvel movie and they don't freak out afterward because they don't know what the hell these references are, you know?
I mean, I'm fully the camp that that's just a load of fucking horseshit. In terms of just like the reason why people tune out of AEW is because AEW is trying to be too much like WWE.
Well, some people do. Some people tune out of it because they want more WWE, and it isn't.
Well, you know, if they want more WWE, guess what? There's WWE. The AEW should be appealing to the hardcore wrestling fan because WWE appeals to the just tuning in casual wrestling fan. That's where the divide should be. I prefer an AEW which alienates the people that don't know who these people are. That's my AEW. That's the one that me as a hardcore wrestling fan wants to watch.
Yeah.
And I believe there are enough hardcore fans like me to make a company like that super sustainable and have a lot of fans follow along with it. I think that they're at least a good, you know, it doesn't need to be tons and tons of people. I'd say like they get like 700,000 people watch every single week. I'm sure there's more than that would fill into that category. I mean, I look at some of the matches pre-show and I'm just like super pumped about it because I know who these people are and I know how great the matches are going to be. I'm more excited for a lot of the matches they just announced for just threw together for the pre-show than some of the matches on the main card. But I think it's at the end of the day, it's 0 hour stuff. It's just there as a lot of like appetizers before you get to the main course of stuff there. They built up the stories for the matches that kind of matter, and other than that, it's like your big crossover show where you are getting these people that you aren't as familiar with because, like I say, you are watching AEW, you're not watching CMLL, or you're not watching New Japan regularly, so you may not know who these people are, but you kind of trust the company like has picked out some really good people, and you just hope that the match is going to be good. So I say, like, the Forbidden Door is an anomaly in that regard, in that you will be seeing people that you aren't super familiar with, but, like, I don't know, I don't get people that aren't excited by that. The look at that and just go, oh, I don't know this person, I don't care, rather than say, like, oh, I don't know this person, I'm interested to figure out. Like, I don't get, it's always such a negative, shitty attitude to me with people like that just look at something new and different, just go, oh, that's weird. Rather than, oh, that's exciting. Like, you know, encourage people to have a bit more of an optimistic attitude rather than to look at something that they're not familiar with and just go, fuck off.
It depends on how much effort you want to put into it, I think. Because there are people like me who, I'm going to be watching it no matter what. And I am going to be having to invest a lot of time into it. And I would rather be watching something that I am like fully tapped into than to have to do homework for it. But then there are other people that are like brand new unknown thing equals super great. Most of the people that I know that are pro wrestling fans have the idea in mind. They go, I don't know who these people are, and I've not seen anything from the other people that have been brought in other than that they are that type of in the pro wrestling side of it, and they aren't that type of a fan. Where, I mean, you could apply this to almost anything like that. Like when it comes to football or baseball, or like, you know, some people go like really into like even like the minor leagues of stuff, and some people are just into the major leagues, and some people are into very niche stuff in comic books, and they're like, man, it doesn't matter what's happening in Marvel and DC. Have you checked out what Image Comics is doing? To each their own on those things, but I look at this and I just go, as my own personal fandom, across the board, it annoys me when it ends up being like, it's the 11th hour and we're going to announce like 7 more matches. And I'm like, crap, you couldn't have like done anything for that. Like for some of this, like, I don't know who some of these people are at all. I couldn't tell you. I don't know what Teton looks like.
He wrestled on Wednesday.
On Dynamite?
Yeah, he was in the trios match against BCC.
He was the guy in the mask in the trios match with BCC.
Oh, I forgot that fast already. Jesus Christ. See what I mean? Like, it's so hard for me to not just go like, there's too many fucking names. There's too many whatever. And it's an overload. So I always get overloaded. It's the two things we talked about before. I get overloaded with AEW and I get underwhelmed with WWE pay-per-views. I want that happy medium between the two. Can I get a 5-hour show instead of a 9-hour or 2-hour thing? And can I get 8 matches instead of 50 or 3? You know, like, so
I'm kind of in the personally. I would like the medium as well because I'm also over WWE having 5 matches and then a solid hour of commercials on their PLEs. But I would also like the AEW events to be a bit shorter. As far as like what Callum was talking about, which is, you know, his preferred AEW is, hey, yeah, this is where the best wrestle. I really think they need to pick a lane and just like do that. If your thing is going to be where we're the best wrestle, cool, do that. Don't try and then have a bunch of stories that have schmoz finishes and.
I'm fully on board with that. The thing that I criticize, and I know people like seem to think the opposite, but I think it's just a perception thing. But I think the biggest issue with AEW is they tell too many stories. Most of them, I'm not to say all the time, they have to tell stories, obviously, but they should be a certain type of story. And then also, they should just throw matches on randomly. Say like, oh, here's 2 cool workers, let's put them together and just see what happens. That should be the norm rather than the odd thing that you see maybe just thrown together on a pay-per-view every now and again. Like, I think that's an exciting and different, that's an alternative. What they're doing is this weird halfway house where they're trying to be this home where the best wrestle and do these, and it's like they do things where they throw matches on at the last minute, and some people that's going to be a turn off, for other people that's going to be fresh and exciting. And I think you should appeal to those people that think it's fresh and exciting rather than try and cater to the people that see that as a negative, because if people see that as a negative, they know where they can go. Essentially, like, you stop trying to take elements of WWE and try and fit it into it, because you're not going to be able to do it as good as WWE can, and they have a 40-odd year head start on you. Like, don't try and cater to both sides, because at the end of the day, once you try and cater to both sides, you're satisfying nobody. So pick, as Rob says, pick a lane, and I think AEW should pick the lane that WWE is not in.
I agree, because look at TNA. TNA started to fall off a cliff when they just wanted to look and feel like WWE. I'm not saying their guys needed to bump in a 6-sided ring, but they got too far into the WWE light territory, and that's where every promotion fails. AEW has already lost a lot of the luster of like, oh, we're the alternative, and it's so different. But there's still a lot of ways that you can make it completely different, and I think they should lean towards that. But it feels like they don't want to completely dedicate themselves to that. It feels, as Callum says, like they want to try to cater to everybody. And as I said earlier, that's just not the way the world works anymore. Nobody is catering to everybody unless you're like a morning show on, over the air TV. Nobody's catering to everybody. Everything is niche. Everything is, curated. Just find your niche and go. Tony's even luckier because he's got money to do it.
Tony Khan, you mean?
Yeah, not you.
Yeah, I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah, and as I say, I don't like discount. When I say these sort of things, I'm discounting they may not be for you, Tony. You may not enjoy certain aspects of that, and maybe some.
Yeah, you're just making the counter argument.
Yeah, but I just think that. Don't you think it makes sense for AEW to take a stance which is not like a completely outside WWE, like not taking anything for it, but to be as removed from WWE as they realistically can be?
I think they should, but it needs to be handled in a better way, because you can be different from WWE and not be running into some of the same problems.
Don't get me wrong, and I completely agree with that. That there is a clear shit show going on behind the scenes in that company that I don't think people are really expressing into. You know that story that was going around about Ultimo Guerrero before their collision match?
What's that?
So essentially, Ultimo Guerrero turns up at the show, and I'll put it this way: he hasn't wrestled with a mask on for well over a decade. I think he lost like a mask versus hair match in Mexico about like over a decade ago, and he has never wrestled in a mask since. So he turns up at AEW Collision, and they say, "Oh yeah, we want you to wear a mask." He says, "Well, I haven't brought a mask because I don't wear a mask anymore." And they go, "What?" And essentially, in a span of like an hour before he has to wrestle, the seamstress for AEW has to hurriedly put together a mask for him, which is like, you know, it looked okay for the hour that they had available to it, but then he's got to wear this mask, and he's like fucking up spots and going all over the place because he's having to readjust his mask all the time because he's not used to wearing that mask or wearing a mask in general for the last decade plus. Kind of absolutely derails that match for Okada, which should have been great, but just fell apart. And then the end of the match, Okada hits the Rainmaker and the mask flies off his face anyway. So I think that there are some serious issues behind the scenes. I think there's way too many cooks in the kitchen now, and I think way too many of those cooks are ex-WWE writers and ex-WWE wrestlers that know only one way of presenting pro wrestling. I think it was way better when it was just Tony Khan and a few other people, and he's just expanded that exponentially to the point where it's now like too bloated. And I know there's certain things like, yes, you need to have a Jen Pepperman to satisfy Mercedes Moné, and fundamentally the women's division has actually been improving significantly. That's been one area of like significant upgrade for AEW over the last 6 months or so. But the overall landscape is there's just way too many voices that are all pitching in different directions, and this is the one thing, and people have said this about Tony Khan over and again, he needs to just put his fucking foot down and say, yeah, we need to be this. This is our identity. This is who AEW is. Don't just say, this is where the best wrestler will. Fucking show it every single week, however that way is. Be a alternative with a clear identity. Don't try and satisfy everybody, because it never ever works. You can't satisfy everyone. Satisfy the people that you want to satisfy. If you want to be for the sickos, as you say, and they say that AEW is for the sickos, then cater to them. Don't try and do not like 60% of the stuff for the sickos and then 40% for the casuals, because at the end of the day, the casuals going to be upset there's too much stuff for the sickos, and the sickos are going to be upset that you're doing too much stuff that's like WWE light. So,
and I mean, this is straight up good advice for life, folks. Do not try to please everybody. You will fail. Like, it's that simple. I even think their presentation leans too much into that. Why do they have LED boards now on the sides, on the, you know, where the fans are?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, they the LED boards. The fact that they turn the lighting down on the audience. Like, the fact that they're like persisting with bigger stadiums with smaller crowds rather than going for smaller arenas which you can pack out and make bigger noise and do that other stuff. Like, there's a lot of just overall decision making which just kind of baffles me, and it's why AEW has such a cold presentation right now. There's a lot of issues that have culminated with that, all stretching back to early last year with the whole, as soon as pretty much the MJF title reign hit, pretty much everything from that point on has been very lightly sports entertainment coated. Like, so, you know, they've shown flashes like the Continental Classic that they can go back to their roots a little bit more. But I think that's why I'm kind of excited for Findor, because it kind of looks like the sort of card that I want from an AEW show. Like, this should be kind of like the norm. You just have like have AEW be the melting pot of the pro wrestling landscape, where you have people from CMLL and STARDOM and New Japan come in and just pop up for just one match here or there with like some of your top talent, and then just move on, as in not as if like nothing happened, but like just to have those cool matches, those cool one-off matches that you want to put. Like that's it. Like Tony Khan's a matchmaker above all else. He's not really as much of a long-term booker, maybe. Like he had his initial plans, but now the roster's too bloated. There's too many people around, and so you can't book in the same way that you want it to. It's like I'm not oblivious to how many problems there are in AEW right now, because they are plentiful. And the issue is that they'll probably get this huge new TV deal eventually, and then they won't have any pressure to improve things, because they'll be in the same way WWE are, that they'll make money regardless of how many people show up in the building every week. So the pressure then just releases. It's what you do with that situation of extreme financial security. Does that make you complacent, or does that motivate you to try new things because you've got that security behind you? So hopefully AEW go with the latter approach, but the other approach is the easier and the more welcoming for some people.
If you want Smark Out Moment to be in a position where you can test that, and you want us to be financially in a spot where we can prove to you that we want to expand and be motivated to go forward. Remember, there's that Redbubble and TeePublic, there's the Patreon, there's the YouTube channel membership, there's the thanks button on this video and any other video if you want to just toss some spare change our way and keep the lights on and all that stuff going. And when it comes to later on this week with Sunday, we're going to have the pay-per-view point post show immediately following Forbidden Door. 20 hours after the events started, it'll be the rundown of that, and you'll hear me go, I don't know anything about some of these people, but they did this, and there's my thoughts and stuff. We'll have the super chats there for anybody that's able to join in on that front. And keep in mind everything else that we normally tell you when it comes to the other stuff. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Subscribe. Ring those notification bells. Get that set up for the pay-per-view point stuff. Check out the link tree things you find over at anthonymango.com or amangotree.com or linktree.com/amango or whatever the fuck I am. I don't remember. And follow all those different accounts there. Stay tuned for Fanboys Anonymous stuff. Stay tuned for, I think that my Collider thing is up already about the mole. I don't know 100% for sure. Let me just double check that real quick. If you are a fan of the mole, definitely suggest checking that out. Got to watch the first 5 episodes a little bit in advance. So,
by the way, really cool for you. Very proud of you.
Thank you.
Getting screeners and doing fun shit like that.
And you're doing stuff on your own too. You're popping up there over on MovieWeb and stuff.
Yeah, I am popping up a little bit on MovieWeb. I'm also, of course, 7 days a week on Fightful.com, because wrestling is still the bread and butter for now. And yeah, follow all my work there. Check out DudeFelice.com. Check out Dude Felice on all the socials, and check out what Callum's got going on.
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at Wigmeister14. You can check out the Power Rankings every single Saturday, where I'm ranking the WWE superstars based on their previous week's performances, and also on smartcommode.com, as well as WWEFantasyLeague.com. You can find the Fantasy League to see how all of our teams are doing, who's picking up points, who's leading the way as we head into Money in the Bank, which is our next kind of stopping point, where the rosters get reset a little bit, change things up. And yeah,
finally getting Jacob Fatu points.
Yeah, let's go.
That's good.
Fucking took me 5-6 weeks or something.
Yeah, the Tula Tonga thing was a bit of a stretch, though. Really.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see. I needed to bounce that the same way as the fucking Jacob Fatu stuff. So
yeah,
it's the latter half of this one. That's where I'll turn around.
I'm gonna be honest. If they do the thing, because right now it's just Cody, KO, and Randy against the Bloodline. If they do the thing where it's not Solo or Jacob and it's Hikuleo and his brothers, I'm gonna be a little upset. I want to see Jacob Fatu wrestle.
Yeah, but either way, you can check out who is doing the best over on Smark Moment, WWEFantasyLeague.com. See how our teams are all doing.
All right, everybody. Well, that is episode number 656 of the Hot Tags. We, of course, will be talking more Forbidden Door content on Sunday after the pay-per-view is over with the post-show. Seems like it'll potentially be just me. Maybe Callum, if he's able to join in.
I'm definitely watching it. I'm definitely going to be there.
Okay, so good. I wasn't sure since it was on a Sunday. Sometimes that's too late.
I take time off work for
AEW stuff.
Forbidden Door, yeah.
And I spend time on work doing this and that. But yeah, we got definitely part of the sicko crowd. Different story though. We got all that coming up. We got SmackDown coming up tonight. I'll be having live coverage over on EWN about that. Got some Money in the Bank qualifiers. We got this Bloodline acknowledgement ceremony. Let's see what happens on that front. And we hope you enjoy that. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Smack Talk. And we will see you next time, everybody. That's going to do us in for this, though. Adios. This has been another Smark Out moment. And we're being counted out.